Let's talk about the single most important and yet probably the most overlooked part of your entire home, the roof. I mean, it's up there, totally out of sight and out of mind, but it is doing a massive job. So in this explainer, we're going to decode the secret language of your roof. That way, you can spot the signs of trouble before a tiny little drip becomes a huge disaster.
So let me just ask you something. When was the last time you actually, seriously, gave your roof any thought? If you're like most of us, the answer is probably, well, never. And why would you? It's just kind of there. We take it completely for granted.
But here's the thing. That roof is your home's #1 line of defense. It is the silent guardian standing between your family, your possessions, and everything the weather can throw at you. And that right there is the key idea we're starting with. Now, your roof is a guardian, for sure, but it's not invincible. So what happens when that guardian starts to fail? Well, that's when the real trouble begins.
To really get this, you first have to appreciate the sheer punishment a roof takes day in and day out. We're not just talking about rain. It's the baking sun month after month. It's the corrosive salt air if you live near the coast. It's driving winds and constant cold and damp. It is a relentless, year-round assault. And for years, maybe even decades, it does its job perfectly, silently. It protects you, and you don't even notice. Until one day, you see a stain on the ceiling, or you hear a drip, drip, drip. And that's the moment the silence is broken.
Okay. And this brings us to the real detective work. Because when you see that water stain, I promise you, it is not a simple problem. It's actually just a symptom of a much larger, hidden issue that's been unfolding right above your head.
You know, our first instinct, of course, is to look straight up from the stain and think, aha, it must be that exact spot on the roof. It seems so logical, right? But here's the twist. Water, it rarely behaves logically. The spot where the water is getting in is almost never directly above that stain you see on your ceiling. And this is where so many people get it wrong. You see, before that water ever drips down, it has gone on this long, destructive journey inside your roof. It travels sideways along timber, it runs down beams, it seeps behind metal seals. That water could have entered the roof meters away from where it finally shows up, which means by the time you actually see it, the real damage has already begun. So if the leak isn't where you think it is, where do these problems actually start? Well, professional roof detectives know to look for 4 main culprits. Let's break them down. Okay, first up is something called flashing. These are just thin metal sheets that seal up the most vulnerable joints on your roof, around chimneys, skylights, anywhere a wall meets the roof. Their whole job is to divert water away from those spots. But flashing takes a serious beating. See, metal expands and contracts in the sun, which eventually causes cracks. Salt air corrodes it. Over time, the seams can just pull apart. And the result is that even a tiny gap, smaller than your pinky finger, becomes a wide open door for a ton of water. All right, the second culprit is the one we all think of, the tiles themselves. They're the tough outer shell, kind of like the armor of your roof. But they are not immortal. Decades of sun exposure can cause tiny hairline cracks. The surface can start to flake off, and sometimes they just slip out of place. And all it takes is one single broken or dislodged tile for wind-driven rain to find its way right inside. Our third culprit is the mortar. This is the cement stuff that holds the ridge caps in place. The tiles that run along the very peak of your roof. It's basically the glue holding the whole thing together at the very top. Now here's the problem. Mortar is rigid, but your house is not. Your home's timber frame naturally expands and shrinks and settles over time. That means that rigid mortar is basically guaranteed to crack. And what looks like just a small cosmetic crack is actually a major failure that lets the ridge caps loosen and water get in underneath, soaking the timber structure. And finally, our fourth and final culprit, the valleys. You should think of these as the superhighways for rainwater. During a really heavy storm, they are responsible for channeling massive volumes of water safely off your roof and away from your house. But when these superhighways fail, it is a catastrophe. The metal can rust right through, or leaves and debris can create a dam. And when that happens, all of that water has absolutely nowhere to go. It backs up, it overflows, and it pours directly into your roof space. Okay, so we've identified the culprits. But knowing the cause, that's only half the battle. Now we need the right solution. Because trust me, there is a huge difference between a temporary patch and a real permanent fix. Look, A quick patch of silicone might stop a drip for a week, but it is a terrible idea. It actually traps moisture, it hides the real damage, and it lets the problem get worse and worse behind the scenes. A professional fix finds and addresses the root cause, restoring your roof's integrity for the long haul. And finding that root cause, that requires a deep inspection. This is not a quick glance from the ground. We're talking about getting on the roof safely, walking every single section, testing the ridge caps, examining every flashing, and checking the structural timber underneath for any signs of rot. It's about being able to read the story the roof is telling. And this right here is exactly why DIY roof repair is so dangerous. It's not just the very, very real risk of falling. It's about patching a symptom while the real cause gets worse. It's about accidentally cracking more tiles just by walking on them the wrong way. And you could even potentially void your home insurance.
Which brings us to our final, and honestly our most important point. The best way to deal with a leak isn't some frantic emergency repair, it's preventing it from ever happening in the first place. Proactive maintenance and regular inspections will save you so much money, so much stress, and it'll protect the value of your home. So I'll just leave you with this one question. Is your home's silent guardian ready for the next storm?